And hello, everybody, and welcome to MGMT203 Principles of Project Management. What a great course that we have, and I look forward to the term with all of you. So, as Don Shula said, and this is a great John Shula, he was the only undefeated NFL single season coach in history, Miami Dolphins, and he said, the superior man blames himself. The inferior man blames others. That really is a quote for all project managers. Okay, so it's a lot to think of. And how do we then get our project off onto the right track? Well, part of it is by starting out high level, by understanding what the business wants of our project. As you recall, the project was initiated to fill some strategic gap. The C-suite, the executive level that chose to fund your project, by doing so, chose not to fund other efforts, right? There's only so much money and other resources to go around. So you have to understand how your project is aligned at the corporate level. And because the deliverable, the product, service, or result that you're trying to create as a project manager has to be aligned with that strategic gap that they've chosen to fund, that strategic gap that the executive level decided needed to be filled, and they choose your project to fill it. So project management involves an understanding of the strategic and business management. This is the ability to see the high-level overview of the organization and implement and negotiate decisions and actions in your project that are going to support alignment and innovation in your project that emphasize corporate desires. Okay, you should be able to express the business aspects of a project. You should be able to work with your sponsor, so your boss who's overseeing the project with you, the team members, other subject matter experts on your delivery strategy in the project that aligns with the corporate strategy. That will help you to maximize business value of the project by implementing the right strategy the right way. And so you'll consider the views of others. You'll talk to operational managers. You'll talk to functional managers. You'll talk to subject matter experts, etc. You'll even use the people on your team that are experts in scope, schedule, cost, risk, quality, etc. And so the more the project manager knows about the project's subject matter and the corporate strategy, the better you can align corporate objectives, products, services, operations, market conditions, and competitions with your own project deliverables, the mission, the goals, the strategy, the objectives of your project. And you'll want to ensure that alignment with the organization by applying the knowledge and information of project management to the corporate strategy. So it should align with your project strategy all along. As John Shula says, the superior man blames himself. The inferior man blames others. That is Project Management 101. You are fully responsible. So these are some of the objectives we're trying to cover this week. This is just an overview of project management in a nutshell. Notice there are 5 process groups in project management. Here's 1, initiating. Here's 2, planning. Here's 3, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. And these are the processes that you are using in each to drive this project and remain aligned with the corporate strategy. And notice every yellow box are your processes, your project management processes that you use to manage all the other processes in that process group. It's just an overview slide. It's meant as a big picture. Take a screenshot of it, print it out, make notes. I think you'll get a lot out of it on how these things relate together. Now, as an introduction, a great project manager will transition from goals and initiatives to real projects, right? So we're taking this corporate strategy and we're transitioning to our project. And remember, we want to remain aligned. And so we do that by first starting with At the corporate level, we're going to start out with the business case. And then we are going to build a project charter, okay? And that project charter is what is going to help us remain aligned but narrow down the focus of our project. Now, throughout, we're going to use the project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK guide, and that's the course book chosen for this this term. Okay, the PMBOK guide is not a cookbook. I want to emphasize it. It is a framework. It's a guide. You have to choose what pieces you want to use, and your role is to integrate. You are the master integrator. The PMBOK guide mandates that you integrate the pieces you need to build a great deliverable that aligns with the corporate strategy, and that you'll tailor that along the way to make sure it remains aligned and that you deliver on your product, service, or result. All along, because a project is unique, never been done, it's unknown. So expect to make trade-offs. Even though you build a great plan, expect to make trade-offs along the way. Okay, and so a good place to start is what influences our projects. Well, the corporate board certainly does, and we want to make sure we remain aligned with their objectives, okay? But there are other things that influence your project. There are factors outside of your project called EEFs, or enterprise environmental factors. These are some examples. They're internal or external. Could be market conditions, could be your boss's sense of risk. These are things outside of your project, outside of your control, but will impact your project. You also have OPAs, organizational process assets. These influence your project, and those are largely internal, and they come in two forms: processes, policies, and procedures. We all know what those are within our company. And corporate knowledge base. Where do I get lessons learned, right? Where are my historical records? Where are my configuration standards, etc.? And then, of course, the third thing that will influence project is just the organizational system itself. So you've got these influences on your project, right? And it's kind of like a fire, right? To have a fire, you have to have fuel, an oxygen system, and a heat source. Well, to have a great project, you have to have authority and responsibility and accountability. And so all of this is bearing down on the project manager. And so you want to develop your influence and your leadership skills, your own competence, have a sense of your own power, and understand the politics of the situation to manage, to keep that project fire hot. So we already talked about some key terms. This is just a summary of EEFs, or enterprise environmental factors. These are things, again, that originate outside of the project, but are not really under your control, but will influence your project. They can be internal or external. I list some conditions or examples there, okay? And you've got to be aware of them. Another key term we already touched on, these are the influences on your project, are OPAs, organizational process assets, right? The bottom line question is, why invent the wheel, right? And so OPAs are things that you can use, processes, policies, and procedures, or corporate knowledge base, to implement your project in a streamlined, successful way that is aligned with corporate strategy. We've already touched on this. This was that third influence, the organizational systems. This is just that expanded view of the summary slide a couple slides ago. And remember, to create a fire, you have to have these three outside elements. Well, to create a great project, you have to have authority, responsibility, and accountability balanced. And the project manager is going to use these powers. I abbreviate it as CLIP: competence, influence, leadership, confidence, leadership, influence, power, and politics, CLIP, which help you keep the fire alive, okay? By using organizational systems and influencing them with CLIP, you can create a synergy to develop your product, service, or result, your output of your project that remains aligned with corporate strategy. Now, of course, you want to have some corporate governance as well. Usually the project management office will provide that for you, but governance is that structured arrangement that's designed to determine and influence behavior, right? We write rules of the road, articles of expected behavior, right? These sort of things. How authority is exercised, right? And this is going to still ensure alignment with the corporate objectives, understand a sense of risk on the company, right? We can't have people not showing up to work. That's an extreme sense of risk. Performance standards and how we communicate with each other. So consider governance as you transition from the strategic level to executing your project. Now, what does the project manager do? Well, their role involves a lot of things: leadership, management, interpersonal skills, and technical skills. Those are the 4 pillars of project management, right? So from a management perspective, the key functions are general management and would involve any one of these sub-bulleted aspects. And again, you can use CLIP to extend your power as a project manager in the management. Okay, so that's how that will work. Now, there are organizational structures that are given to you usually that are going to influence your power. Does it really matter what type of organizational structure a company has, a matrixed organization or a functional or a projectized? It doesn't really. It's just there's no one size fits all. Your company and you will implement the organization that you works best in your culture and your industry. Realize, though, that the one size doesn't fit all, and all have advantages and disadvantages. You want to understand the factors that impact the organizational structure. So you'll want to understand how your organization on your project and within your company align, where clear authority is, accountability and responsibility we've already talked about. Those 3 were part of CLIP to make sure that you maintain the power. You want to consider specialization, span of control. What is your path for escalation? Project managers need a path for escalation. And how are you going to communicate, etc. Now, there are 6 common organizational structures. Frankly, many companies are functionally oriented, right? Led by a functional manager, and the project manager kind of supports that. And the functional manager owns the resources, right? They're kind of stovepiped. They might be maintenance in one function, operations in another function, legal in another function, right? Those are stovepiped. A project-oriented organization, the nickname, and so a functional organization, the nickname is silo. For a projectized organization, it's no home because everybody works for the project manager. The project manager has ultimate authority to ensure that alignment, but the project managers have the most power here. But in the end, there's no home for your team members. They have nowhere to go when it's over. And then the third type is a matrix organization. Just to save on resources, many companies are matrixed today. That really means 2 bosses. That's the nickname. And realize that you can be relegated as a project manager to either a coordinator or an expediter in those types of organizations. So that's going to impact your alignment, your project alignment with corporate strategy as well. Now, your matrix organization can be weak, balanced, or strong. They have advantages and disadvantages. The key is to know which one you're working within so you understand your own sense of power. Other types of organizational structures include virtual, hybrid, or PMO, addressed further in the book. Now, this slide is just a summary of those 6 types of organizational stripes. What I did was I put them in a spectrum from where the project manager's power is weakest to where it's strongest. And so the project manager's power is weakest in a functional organization and strongest in a project-oriented or PMO type organization. Once in a while, you'll hear the term type matrix. That has nothing to do with the type, with a matrixed organization. That has more to do with how you're organized within an office space. So don't get confused by that. Again, this is just a summary of the 6 types from the last slide of the organizational types. Now, the project manager has roles. I'm going to take a break here and we're going to come back and finish up week 1 with one more session. We're going to talk about the project manager roles next.